Hello, dears. That was really interesting, Frank. Is that how you think it works?
I thought it was fun. It was creative.
This is a very big month.
Yes.
And it's a very big month for a whole lot of reasons. Of course, there is the eclipse this month, and that is going to create some very big changes in your world, which are already starting up at this point. You are working with a lot of energy that isn't usually coming your way. You have, and this isn't major gamma releases. It's not some of the very large energy transmissions you've had. It's much more of an astrological nature. A lot of interesting triangulations, and right here within your own solar system, a lot of planetary interference, or maybe you don't want to think of it as interference, you'd rather just see it as a filter of energy that's a little different than usual. And so those who are familiar with astrological information, you may be very interested in checking out some of that, because it too has an effect on you. Aside from the eclipse, however, some of the greatest things you are dealing with this month has to do with your sun. And the changes that are going on right now with the solar body, Vesta-Helios, and changes that are going to create long-term change for you, for your planet, for this transition that's coming about. And it begins with the ancient holiday of Lughnasadh. What is Lughnasadh about? Well, the sun.
Celebration of the first harvest.
Celebration of first harvest, all right, all right. What does first harvest mean?
The one before any others.
That's right.
Well, it would be at the end of the summer where everything has come to fruition and is ready.
Well, not quite that far along. It's talking about the beginning of the end. Now, didn't you like the way I said that? Yes.
Well, it's when the first of the fruits and vegetables and that are coming to fruition, especially in the more northern
There.
climates.
That, for the ancients, is much more what it's about. And Frank made a very important point. You know that when I talk to you about the ancients, I'm usually talking to you about Western thinking and Northern thinking, both of which is important, because Lughnasadh is not the first of the harvest in Australia, is it? Or Kentucky, which has been harvesting for quite some time, sure. However, because of the way that your Earth was populated, much more population thousands of years ago was from your equator north than your equator south. That took longer. I'm talking thousands of years. Insofar as spiritual energy sites, you've mapped many more of those in the north than you have in the south. That doesn't mean that there are fewer or that it is less meaningful. It only means that I'm speaking to a culture that is northern and western and not southern and eastern for the most part. Lughnasadh represents abundance. It represents plenty. What it does not represent is prosperity, even though that is a given within the idea of it. In your society right now, abundance is a tricky idea. And I just want to take a minute for you to think about it, because Lughnasadh is a time of remembering what brought you to where you are. And that is exactly what your sun and the solar deity that is your sun is creating as a filter right now. What has been is changing at this point. You are changing radically at this point. Your world is making changes as a planet itself. Lughnasadh is about what has been to bring you here, and you're about to face no longer looking at what has been. How much of your life do you base on yesterday? How much of what you consider good is based on this is how it's always been? The solar energy that works through your sun is essentially a stepping down point for energy that comes into your world. At the eclipse, you are going to be opening the doorway for a tremendous amount of energy to be coming into your world. You have been directing energy through Sirius for the last few years. Before that, through Alcyone. You are going to be directing energy through Vesta-Helios. Vesta-Helios is going to be functioning as an individuated, instead of what's the word I'm looking for here? Instead of the two coming together and working as divine feminine and divine masculine, it's more than integration. It is the release of duality altogether. That does not mean duality is going to be released here. That means that the filter of that energy that comes to you will not be about duality. Why is that going to be a massive change? Listen to me again. That helps. It's not that the energy, the filter itself, is going to be changing the energy. Understand that. It's that the only energy that can come through is not dualistic energy. How will that change things?
I don't know. It's just the first thought that came to me that it will affect free will somewhat.
It is a possibility in the big picture, but let's play with it a little more. Rebecca, Stephen, Suzanne, Bonnie, Gail.
If the only thing that can come through will be unity, no more separation.
No, it's a singularity rather than a duality.
So if there is no separation, though, it's coming in as a singularity, then I would think, since the filter's changed, people won't be able to see separation. Hopefully.
It will be a lot harder to. You're right. A lot harder to.
Just thinking there'd be a greater recognition of oneness.
Hopefully. Potentially. Absolutely.
Similar to Rebecca's, there won't be any energy feeding the mental construct.
Good.
Of
Good.
duality.
Yes.
So it won't be constantly being refed. It'll be easier to let go of.
By far less extremism. Very good, very good.
The word I was thinking was balanced. It will be even and balanced. The energy will be both.
Now, there is a difference between energy flowing in a singular pattern and energy being balanced. Remember that. Balance is a function you create.
Balance would be both.
Depends on what you were meaning when you were saying that. You said that it would be balanced. I am saying that how you use that energy determines the balance.
My thinking was along the lines of what Susan was saying. I sort of see it physically as a structure, and for me, that singularity there would be no support for the duality.
No support. I like that. I like that.
Therefore, its time would be limited as a construct on this plane of existence.
Good. Bob.
We live in a world of opposites, and I would say that would mean that opposites were going to collapse or maybe go away.
Ideally.
This is way out on a limb. I'm thinking
I like limbs.
singularity as a physics type of term, where it's like the point of a whole new creation.
In many, many ways. Absolutely.
I think manifestation will be easier because we're experiencing wholeness through the energy coming through instead of it being having to work with both masculine and feminine energy for the manifestation process. It'll be all one.
Well, I like that. I could not say at this point that that energy change is going to affect the manifestation process, but again, it makes sense that as the idea of duality begins to fade, the opportunities that are brought about by way of a singular energy flow without automatically dividing it would help people in their manifestation process. But again, that's kind of like balance. That's up to what you do with it.
It seems that it would go with the function moving back to thought. It would, if you were thinking about things in terms of potentiality, for the law of one, the service to the one, it has a lot of possibilities in that way, I'm thinking.
Energy force flowing without duality changes the nature of creation in your world. Changing the nature of creation is going to have an effect on such things as manifestation and such things as the way you use the energy. Right now, at this point, it's not a I can tell you how it's going to be kind of thing. Because your world's experience has always been dualistic, hasn't it? So yes, big picture, small picture, I don't know. I don't know. But here is where I'm going with it, and here is why I'm going there. As with so much that has to do with the eclipse, your memory of the old, your choices to remain with the old, your decisions to base your world on what has been is the danger right now. Danger, all right. I'm being dramatic again. But ultimately, when you hold on to what was, you're keeping yourself from what can be. You have all kinds of opportunity coming your way. But everything is a function of a brand new level of being. How often now do you catch yourself doing the most comfortable thing? How often do you find yourself resisting something new simply because you don't have a guarantee that you're going to be perfect at it or successful with it? August and the beginning of harvest is about bringing new things into your life. And this month, part of what you're going to be finding going on in your life is that you're going to become very, very aware of things that you don't want in your life. I want you to be careful with this. try not to see things as black and white. I want this, I don't want that. Instead, work to see how things fit together in a bigger picture. Don't rely on getting a very obvious statement. Don't need extremes. You often rely on extremes because you don't hear the soft little tap. You rely on the universe finally bellowing out with the 2x4. Pay attention. And you've adapted yourself to the very, very loud instead of the gentle and soft within. You rely on your human instincts because this world is all about extremes and drama. As you know, the last year has been a lot of drama. Look at integration. Look at big pictures. Look at how this situation fits in with all of the others going on in your life. Learn to listen within. Now, for a moment, how do you listen within? What helps you do that?
Quiet time.
I've been talking to you for months about the importance of giving yourself time to go within. Your minerals can help you do that. You may have tools that are useful for you. 5-minute meditation. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Go back to it. It's wonderful for teaching you how to listen within. Samael, I've been listening within for years. I don't have a problem listening within, but you've listened through dichotomy. You've listened through the translation of your human self. And this is about your heart, your spirit, and your brain coming together. It's not the brain part and the spirit part. It's the merge of them both. A world without extremism, which is the extreme of dichotomy, a world without the need for that great unequal and yet whole picture. For it instead to simply pour out in wholeness is going to require you to relearn how to hear. To get out of the habits of the old way of hearing. The old way of hearing has been the associative process, giving you symbols and omens, and having things lead bit by bit, step by step, into a new direction. Now it's poured out in front of you as a whole, as one great picture. And you want to be careful that you don't fall into judgment, analyzation, because that's separating it out. That you don't fall into, again, repeating myself over and over and over tonight, into those old patterns of how you heard. There is a key in this. There is a way for you to best be able to make this shift. And that is for you to be regularly functioning in wholeness. Most of you were here yesterday. What was the big point I kept making?
Intend love.
Again?
Intend love.
Intend. Your intent. And that intent needing to be love. That's very good, yes. You're already whole. You're already there. You are already perfect. And to stop focusing on the cracks. Functioning out of that wholeness redefines the information you're getting. When it comes to you as a whole, you are functioning beyond your human experience. You are functioning within your spiritual experience, which is without time and without space. You are able to see how that whole distributes itself within your life. This is a huge difference. Now, how long will it take for you to make the switch into that kind of thinking? That's your question. That's for you. How long does it take you to bring change into your life? How long does it take you to create a new way of thinking or accept a new way of being?
I'm simplifying this, I'm sure, is it to recognize that I am, and when a decision comes from that place of knowing that I am, that's the way to address the decision.
That's good. That's good. The key, of course, is knowing that. But remember that your natural tendency is going to want to be, what are the pros and what are the cons? It's going to want to be to divide it up, to separate it out. I'm just asking that you might serve better if what you do instead is look to see how it fits, to incorporate rather than separate.
The whole time I've been listening to what you're saying, I keep thinking about time and space. And to me, when the characteristics of feminine and masculine become integrated, there's the ability to step more quickly into the moment, because you're not having to have those two things functioning separately.
Ideally, yes.
There's that space kind of between one and the other, from the within to the without action. And what I'm thinking is that there's less process involved of the mind.
Ideally.
If we're functioning
Right?
in unity is not the right word, but as it, then the need for process is not as much.
Right?
So to me, it seems like when you get the whole picture, not to resist it,
Good.
to integrate yourself as quickly as possible to what you see,
Good.
without having to, as you said, analyze it. So to me, it's extremely exciting, because those things that we used to think through and then we would put that energy out into the world, it seems to me like the potential for manifesting becomes quicker that
Good.
way.
Good.
One way that I've been able to translate what you've said that has, I think, makes sense for me is, if anybody's ever studied a foreign language, and before we're very skilled at that language, it all comes in one big rush. And we don't necessarily understand every single word of it, but we know what they said.
Good.
And I think that's the trick, is to not translate it, to use whatever's in there and get the sense of what the idea is and move with it.
Good.
And that's the new way of communication.
I like that. Good. Good. Very good.
Thank Tony for that.
Thank you again.
Is your concern that because in the West here, we have become so used to breaking things down in bits and pieces to understand it,
Yes.
and that now it's going to be more intuitive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. All right, I'm not doing quite as poorly a job as I was thinking, because you're getting it, and that's good. So here's Stuart.
I just had a question about, with the singularity and the energies coming in, like for...
Well, let's be careful about calling it a singularity, because that's not accurate.
But a shift away from duality.
All right.
A lot of times in my life, I can look at myself, I can reflect and say, okay, am I responding with love or am I reacting with fear?
Good.
And that's a duality. So
Right.
with this new energy, where does that leave us in trying to determine if we're in fear or in love?
There is no fear. There is only love. And what is pouring out to you is only love. Well, actually, it's pure creation force, but in this frequency strata, it is love. The only fear you have is due to functioning in your past instead of your moment. It's a choice you want to stop making. Do not ask yourself, is this fear or love? Affirm your love and let that guide you. I'm not saying your behaviors will be different. That's the problem. You don't want to think, here is what I should be doing, unless what you're thinking is, and what I'm doing is functioning in love. As long as you choose to live with duality, you will keep the old strong. Having said all of that, I want you to remember that what I'm talking about is a filter. And it is exactly that, a filter. You are moving from a solar body that has been in its own process of evolution. It is moving out of what you think of as your physical sun. It's never been a part of your physical sun. That's what, a big hydrogen star? It's the spirit behind it. But it has also been an evolutionary process as it moves toward its ascension as well, as it moves into its creatorhood. Its energy is moving out of duality so that everything that moves through that filter is no longer a part of the duality because it is a greater part of its ascension reality. Do I have an example? Let's see. You have many different faces you give to the world, right? But all they ever have been are either masks or doorways into your truer self. If they are masks, they are a part of the duality. Around these people, I cannot be this way. That's a mask. When I am in this role, I cannot bring any of my other roles in. That is duality. That is judgment. I cannot do this or I will not be liked. As opposed to a doorway, an opportunity. It's going to be about the way you see your world. But that was always the case with the change of density. This is going to amplify that. Because when you are functioning as your spirit self, you're going to be much more able to see the whole, to see how it fits, to see the opportunity, as opposed to seeing the problems that might come up, seeing how it's going to be difficult, seeing how, well, there is this, but what about that? it won't ideally be your go-to way of functioning. Duality. Instead, it will be by far more about integration. Integration isn't unity, but unity will help you with integration. This is new. This wasn't a part of the plan at the eclipse. This is a shift because your planet is shifting to a point that it no longer needs the creation force coming as a duality in order to hold the blueprint of what has been. It makes sense looking at a large picture. How can you hold a new density that is not based on fear, which is it's fear or it's love? How can you hold a new density if you're going to remain being energized by duality? It doesn't fit. This is the right change. But it's up to you to experience it as wholeness. It's up to you to choose to be in your now. How often have you heard that? Rather than looking back, rather than focusing on automatic. Everything you look at with new eyes, new ears, new self. Choose to see the wholeness. Choose to see the integration. And when you catch yourself listening to why it's good or bad, why it's this or that, when you catch that, just shift back to your now and look for that wholeness. This turnover began yesterday. It didn't have anything to do with anything on the planet. It began coming to you as a whole yesterday, more or less. So think, what changed in you yesterday? How have you responded to things going on in your life since yesterday? What change have you experienced in the way you think, or the way you feel, or the connections that you have around you since yesterday? What can you do to strengthen and support wholeness and release duality? And what you've been experiencing over the last 24 hours, more or less, can help you see what to do more of and what to do less of. This was absolutely not my idea of what I would talk to you about on a first Sunday night. No. But you want to know this, because it will help you function through to the eclipse, where these changes will be solidified, and your whole world will become aware of it. You keep, Gwendolyn, kind of wanting to...
I don't know how it is for everybody else, but I keep simplifying it in my mind.
Simple is good.
And
It is simple, actually.
Well, it is what you're really saying in the now. All that, okay, free will pops in there. But I see no choices, because to be this, just love, that's it.
That's it.
Well, I've been, as you know, struggling here, trying to, when you talk, it starts getting a little complicated in my simple brain, and I wanted it to be, I want to see just how this is. Well, heck, it gets down, you don't have to worry about anything else but love, living love. I mean, a person can have an awful lot of other things going on if they don't get with that.
One of the things that I talked about yesterday was expanding your definition of love, of remembering that love is by far more than the little set labels that you have, the love a parent has for a child, the love that people within a sexual relationship have, people within a long-term relationship, on and on and on, all of the different versions of love. And to move it out of the mundane and into the spiritual, love is one. One is love. It is wholeness already. When you are functioning in wholeness, you are functioning in love. And one of the things that I constantly work to remind you is that love is what you are. So when your choices are based on your working with your truest self, when you are authentically functioning in the world, when you are fulfilling your truest self, then you are functioning in love. And the things that come to you, that you are looking to see where they fit within the great integration of all things, are answered by your being truest to your greater self. That leads to an important question. Do you know the true you? Have your masks become so much the way that you define yourself that without them you won't know how to function? This is the time to learn to love the true you. This is the time to learn what the true you sounds like. Yes, ideally you have known this forever. But as long as you have pieces of yourself scattered across your world, and what I mean by pieces of yourself is, as long as you have this role that is fully separate from that role that is fully separate from this role, this mask fully separate from that mask, as long as you have pieces of your life that are fully separated from each other, then you're not trusting, hearing, loving, knowing your true self. So release the pieces and bring your life into wholeness. Allow what you are, your true self, to be all you are in this world. Some of you already do that. Some of you really don't, and you know it. That's why I made the point of talking about this tonight, so that you would have time to introduce yourself to you, and let that one out into the world. It's a big month. And what I'm suggesting is simple, but not easy. But it will make your life easier. It will also help your world release that idea of duality. Because you know how it works. When you do something, pretty soon, that's how things go. You open doors.
So are you saying, just as sort of a guiding rule of thumb, as we walk through this new world, every moment in our now, from now on,
so be it,
that we look at situations and stop looking at the lake of the known and unknown, but rather just look at wholeness from all perspectives to discern how to move forward? Is that the idea?
Yes, however, what I'm also saying in there is the easiest way for you to do that will be for your true self, which is already whole. For your true self to be how you function in this world. To let go of the need for separation, that this group can know nothing about this group, that these people don't fit with these people, that these ideas are totally separate from these ideas. To see that wholeness, because that's what you are. and allow that self into your world. When you experience the shift at the eclipse, and you will experience something at that time, your self is not going to have the foundation of what your whole life up until now has been about, which is everything is about dichotomy. You're not going to have that unless you insist on it. And you won't insist on it if you are already true to you. And that's the wholeness. It's part of the ascension process. Your star is going to be functioning on pure creation energy. That energy is what you will be receiving. You then have a choice. Oh, well, I just want to keep it the old way, and I'm going to make it a separation. Or I'm going to live wholeness.
It sounds like we can't really ascend unless, if we hide parts of ourselves to people around us.
You can ascend, just only to a certain amount.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of like we haven't come out of the spiritual closet yet. Now would be a good time.
Well, that's, yes, that's true, and that's a part of it, but it's every area of your life. Any time you have hidden who you truly are, any time you have not allowed yourself to come through, everything you are is going to want to move away from that. It's just about choice. And the more you love, trust, accept the true you, the easier that choice will be. It is simple. It just might not be easy. It's simple. Worrying is dichotomy. Hear you. Because what are you? Source. So when you hear you, you will hear source. Be the true you. Integrate. See the big picture. Don't make this hard. It's new. It's not hard.
So in the future, how shall we reference the filter formerly known as Vesta-Helios?
Vesta-Helios still works. in actuality, you're probably not going to have a lot of need to make reference. Probably. All right. Big month. Quick thing about the eclipse. The longer you are in the energy of the full darkened sun, while you are in a conscious intent, because that's the big difference. That's why this isn't just go anywhere and suck it in. You are functioning within conscious intent for a specific purpose. Then you become the energy filter of Vesta-Helios. That's what you will be doing. Within the ritual, everything moves very awkwardly through Vesta-Helios. You are taking on not shining self, solar self. You are working for this system. The longer you are in that, the stronger that flow becomes through you for afterwards. I would tell you, as I told the task force putting it together, yes, 2 or 3 seconds makes a difference. You want to be little piggies out there, sucking it up as much as you can, for as long as you can. It's worth it.
Will you be speaking at all during that dark time?
During the dark time, you will be in small groups doing particular things for the planet. You'll put on your glasses and do that work, and during the dark time, you can take them off. Again?
You can't see with them on, so you better take them off. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I would tell you to keep them on while you're doing other work is in case you happen to look up to say, oh, what's it doing now? You don't want to do that.
But we'll have instructions of.
Oh, yes.
But you won't be speaking during that time.
I won't be speaking during that time.
Okay.
No, you have the ritual and then the continuation of the work through the ritual happening at that point. You don't want me talking while you're sucking up that energy. So, no, not at that moment. All right. Poke me with a fork. I'm done. Wholeness, my dear ones. Think about your last 24 hours. Make it a time of magic, because it's really meant to be. It is. Lughnasadh.